Okay guys, I gotta be honest, it took me a long time to finish this video. Believe me, these games are good, but when you play 5 games in a row that don't have much gameplay differences, it tends to make you a lot less motivated. Good thing we only got one more Greek game after this, so yeah. Welcome back to Road to Ragnarok. Last time I talked about God of War 2, a vast improvement upon its predecessor both story and gameplay wise. Kratos has been used by the gods for far too long, so he finally vows his revenge, beginning his journey to kill the king of the gods, Zeus. But before we continue to the next chapter of Kratos' story, we have to go backwards in the timeline to cover a spin-off released on the PlayStation Portable, God of War Chains of Olympus. And we're gonna be killing two birds with one stone by reviewing the other PSP game, but let's focus on Chains of Olympus for now. Instead of being developed by Sony Santa Monica, this one was made by Ready at Dawn, a small team mostly known for developing the God of War PSP titles and Okami. Sometime after the original God of War came out, Ready at Dawn pitched the idea of a God of War game on Sony's handheld. While not a vital chapter in the God of War saga, it would have interesting character moments for the Ghost of Sparta, as well as offering the same gameplay as the first two entries. So needless to say, I'm not going to talk about it that much, so I'll just talk about everything else. So without further ado, here's God of War Chains of Olympus. So yeah, I don't want to sound mean or anything, but you can definitely tell this wasn't made by the same team. On the surface, the team did a good job at replicating the art style the other two games had, but it's just minor things like Kratos' walk animation and the original music sounding ever so slightly off. So just by the opening alone, this is definitely Diet God of War. And speaking of Diet God of War, the gameplay. Again, the formula is being a little worn out at this point, but Chains of Olympus has a notable difference. The dodge takes some getting used to. Since the PSP doesn't have a right stick, the dodge here is activated by moving while holding the shoulder buttons. And I gotta be honest, I hate the dodge. Half of the time, I died because I couldn't dodge at the right time, in addition to the game being pretty unforgiving with enemy placement. The dodge is slow as hell too. It was pretty quick in the other two, but now it feels like Kratos is rolling on the ground like a sack of potatoes. But enough about the gameplay. What's the story like? Well, for starters, this takes place during Kratos' servitude to the gods, making this the earliest game in the timeline so far. Kratos starts this adventure in the middle of a battle against the Persian army, as well as a basilisk. After Kratos once again shows his usual no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point brutality, the sun mysteriously sets in the middle of the day. As Kratos goes to Helios' temple to investigate, we see a mysterious fog swallow the land. Athena tells Kratos that since Helios has disappeared, the sun was put out, resulting in Morpheus, the god of dreams, seizing control and swallowing all of the earth. Most of the gods have already fallen into a deep sleep, so it's up to Kratos to find out what happened to Helios. You know, when I walk through all these puzzles and hallways in Helios' temple, I get a sense of comfort. Like I said at the beginning of my God of War 1 review, I only played the first 4 mainline games, so this is my first time playing Chains of Olympus, and it kinda makes me feel at home when I get back into that familiar setting and gameplay loop. The combat is still mostly the same, and the art direction is 90% faithful to the PS2 games. Some of the music is even recycled from said games, and more things overall just make me feel glad to be back in ancient Greece. And I think that's funny considering I called this game Diet God of War not too long ago. After we make it past the depths of Olympus, we learn that— What the fuck? I'm looking at you, David Jaffe. After we make it past the depths of Olympus, we learn that Atlas is somehow involved in Helios' disappearance. Somehow, someone freed Atlas from Tartarus, allowing him to kidnap Helios. Okay, now that's kind of interesting. You see, in God of War 2, they hinted at Atlas having met Kratos sometime in the past, and we're gonna see how it happened here. I think that's kind of cool. Guys, I think my emulator might be broken. By far, I think one of the most interesting things about this story is the stuff with Calliope, Kratos' deceased daughter. As he wanders the dark overworld shrouded in the fog of Morpheus, he hears a familiar, haunting melody. Eventually he remembers it's a song Calliope used to play on her flute. Once Kratos uses the Steeds of Helios to travel to the underworld, you know, like every other game, we get a pretty cool boss fight against the ferryman of the underworld before making it to Persephone's temple, where Kratos spots Calliope chasing after her. Once Kratos meets Persephone, he demands to meet with Calliope, which is a decision that'll cost him greatly. After draining all his power and entering the field of Elysium, Kratos finally has everything he's ever wanted. He's reunited with his daughter and he can finally rest. But now Persephone reveals that she's been behind Helios' capture this entire time, setting Atlas free and stealing Helios' power to destroy the pillar of the underworld, destroying Olympus in the process. You see, just like Kratos, Persephone was used by the gods. She was forced to marry Hades and went to live in the underworld all against her own will. So she hatched this scheme to destroy Olympus and by extension all of Greece. Now Kratos is faced with a choice. He can either stay here with Calliope in their last moments as Atlas destroys the world, or he can push his daughter aside and reclaim all his abilities to save the world. As you can imagine, this isn't an easy choice, so now we're finally at one of the most hilarious out of context moments, the child abandonment quick time event. Yeah, this shit looks funny at face value, but it really is one of the best examples of combining gameplay and storytelling. QuickTime events are only used when Kratos does something really hard, like taking down a tougher enemy or opening a heavy door. This is a brilliant way of showing us that abandoning Calliope is one of the hardest things for him to do. Afterward, we get another neat moment of symbolism when Kratos has to slaughter these souls in order to regain all his abilities. We fight some enemies, save and replenish our health and magic, and we finally make it to the final boss. Yeah, this game is pretty short. You know, the way Persephone is designed here, she kinda reminds me of all the Valkyrie boss fights from the Norse games. Not only that, but the first phase revolves around dodging her aerial attacks, which gives you a window of opportunity to land a few hits. I wonder if Sony Santa Monica used this fight as inspiration later on. If they did, they made it a lot better because I still fucking hate the dodging! But other than that, the boss is pretty fun. After Kratos fully blasts Persephone with the power of the sun, he chains Atlas to the bottom of the earth and the credits roll. That was short. So, that was God of War Chains of Olympus. For a handheld spin-off, it's an alright entry in the series. It's a little janky, but once you get accustomed to it, it's not that bad. However, do I see myself replaying it? Not really. The story, while fairly simple, is pretty neat and has some emotion to it during the third act. But at the end of the day, gameplay is more important, so I'm sorry guys, but as decent as this game is, I don't see myself going back to it as often as the original trilogy. But hey, maybe they improve for the next game, right? For the next spin-off, Ready at Dawn promised for it to be bigger, with more gameplay and a larger story, which is a pretty bold statement since Chains of Olympus apparently already pushed the PSP's operational limits. Anyway, not much to talk about for the development, so let's just get it over with. Here's God of War Ghost of Sparta. Okay, holy shit, yeah, this game is so much better than the other one. Besides the death of Persephone, the one character moment with Calliope and Atlas being chained under the earth. Besides the death of Persephone, the one character moment with Calliope and Atlas being chained under the earth, Chains of Olympus was kinda pointless if you think about it. But Ghost of Sparta's narrative gives us more sides of Kratos we never saw before, and it gives us more reasons why he hates the gods. In between the events of God of War 1 and 2, Kratos does his duties as the new God of War before he enters the Temple of Poseidon and unravels painful memories about the disappearance of his brother Deimos. After a brief vision of Kratos and Deimos playing as children, Kratos meets with his mother in the temple, who tells him to go to Sparta if he wants to find Deimos. Sadly, Zeus cursed her to turn into a monster if she ever tried to reveal who Kratos' dad was, so Kratos is forced to kill his own mother. This all just emphasizes that the gods really did take everything from him. This game also looks beautiful as hell. I thought Chains of Olympus looked pretty good, but Ghost of Sparta almost looks on par with God of War 3, which is the best looking one in my opinion. You can really tell they were pushing the PSP's limits with this. If you told me this was on the PS2, I'd probably believe you. Sections like the lava room in Atlantis and the devastating volcano background are some of the best looking sections in the game, and we're not even an hour in. Knowing that people were playing this on the go during the DS era is still very insane to me. Again, the gameplay is basically the same from Chains of Olympus, so it's basically the mainline games, but Kratos is heavier in the air and he has a shittier dodge. However, I forgot to mention that the PSP games omit the Spartan Rage ability. for whatever reason. The closest thing we have to it now is the Thera's Bane ability, which is essentially a limited version of it that can also be used to break specific walls. The little set piece and enemy encounter after getting the ability was really cool. Also, this is a minor thing, but I liked when Kratos got pissed off and destroyed the Athena statue. I thought that was kind of neat. Anyway, now we meet up with Erinus. I hope that's how you pronounce it. I wasn't really paying attention if they ever said it out loud, and I'm just reading it to the script, so I just hope that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, we meet up with the daughter of Thanatos, the god of death. She's been on Kratos' trail since he destroyed Atlantis, and she tells us Deimos was captured by Thanatos, so we fight her. This boss is actually pretty fun. Dodging once again is vital, and she does this thing where sometimes she'll parry your attack, so you have to parry that parry. Like, that's kinda cool. She also turns into Sephiroth at some point. After a set piece where she turns into a bird and we go skydiving to finish her off, we finally make it to Kratos' hometown, Sparta. Two neat things for Kratos' character shown is just how much Sparta feels more friendly compared to every other environment in the series. This was where Kratos grew up after all, and all the people here welcome him back like a hero, except for this one dude who is loyal to Ares and unleashes a lion on us. But that's okay. We're just gonna kill him anyway. Once we enter the old temple of Ares, we get a neat confrontation with young Kratos. Can you imagine if this happened in Sonic Generations? Anyway, we learn about why Deimos disappeared in the first place. Much like the Titans before them, it's been prophesized that the Olympians would eventually meet their end. Not because of the Titans coming back or anything, but by the hands of a marked warrior. So they attack young Kratos, scarring his right eye and then kidnapping Deimos, thinking that he's the marked warrior. This is one of the things that made Kratos the man he is today. The kidnapping of Deimos is what sparked his hatred for the gods, and he got a tattoo mimicking his brother's birthmarks, making Kratos the masked warrior. After a few puzzles, Kratos finds the key to the domain of death and he starts to head back to the crumbling city of Atlantis. Before we enter the docks, we get this cool scene with King Midas and his golden touch. Honestly, I never got why the tale of Midas is supposed to be tragic. Never mind, let's kill this guy. After we get on a boat and sail back to Atlantis, we fight a gauntlet of enemies before crashing into the sunken city. We get a scene of Poseidon getting mad at Kratos for sinking the city, giving him a reason to fight him in God of War 3, but we're getting too ahead of ourselves. For now, Kratos realizes that Athena was there when Deimos was kidnapped, which leaves Kratos feeling betrayed, even if she mentions For now, Kratos realizes that Athena was there when Deimos was kidnapped, which leaves Kratos feeling betrayed, even if she mentions she saved him from Ares. It just goes to show that even the gods who guided Kratos to victory can't be trusted. Continuing our descent into the depths of Atlantis, What the fuck happened? Okay, after restarting the emulator, continuing our descent into the depths of... Are you fucking kidding me?
So what you want to do is you want to go into your settings, go to System, and see right here, Fast Memory Unstable, this option right here. Uncheck this, the Fast Memory Unstable. So usually right when you decide to drop down right here, the game will just crash on you, but as you can see, no crash.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fucking stupid. After fixing the weirdest emulation bug I've ever seen, we finally make it to the domain of death, a foggy, ruined temple with dead plants and no signs of life or color. After a few puzzles, we meet Deimos, freeing him. I'm sure this reunion is bound to go well. At this point, I like Deimos as a character, judging by the flashbacks and the build-up to finally seeing him, but since he's so important to this narrative, I kinda wish they'd show him a little more. I know they had a tight budget, but still, he could have been fleshed out a little more. Whatever, it's time to meet Thanatos, who looks like a tyrant from Resident Evil. After we fight him, we save Deimos and he joins Kratos for the final battle, where we get to press a button to make him throw a projectile. Oh wait, never mind, he's dead. Well, now Now it's time for Kratos to use the power of Kaioken to beat up evil monster Thanatos in a fit of rage. This next QTE sequence reminds me of the opening fight from God of War 3, which I thought was really cool. Now that Thanatos is dead, Kratos walks over to Deimos' lifeless body and carries him up the mountain. Zeus, disguised as the Gravedigger, digs a grave for Deimos, and we see that this is the same cliff where Kratos tried to kill himself in the first game. Wait, does that mean Kratos went to the domain of death to kill himself back then? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Whatever, Zeus calls Kratos Death the Destroyer of Worlds, which was a nice bit of foreshadowing on top of being a funny Oppenheimer reference. Athena offers to fully convert Kratos to godhood, but he refuses, saying the gods will pay for this someday. As he leaves, she calls him brother, and the game ends. So, yeah. Ghost of Sparta. I don't know if I just got used to the gameplay or if it's just better than Chains of Olympus somehow, but I definitely think this game is more fun than the predecessor. Not only that, but this game actually has a story, and a pretty interesting one at that. This game is much more justified in existing, and I'll probably replay it sometime in the future. My only real complaint is that I wish Deimos was more present in the narrative since he's really important. But other than that, this game, and to a lesser extent Chains of Olympus, were a nice side adventure to try out if you want from. But other than that, this game, and to a lesser extent Chains of Olympus, were a nice. But other than that, this game, and to a lesser extent Chains of. But other than that, this game, and to a lesser extent Chains of Olympus, were a nice extra side adventure if you want to try out. Oh my fucking god. If you want more from the Greek era, try both of these games out. In my opinion, one is clearly better than the other, but I definitely recommend trying both out for yourself. But as for me, I'm just glad that I only have one more game to go for this chapter in Kratos' life. Well, technically two, but have you tried emulating PS3 games recently? That shit's fucking impossible. I'm not gonna touch God of War Ascension. Also, I heard it's pretty meh, so yeah.